Okay, take a 10-second.
Recording in progress.
All right, good. All right, I'd like to call to order the City of Oregon City Library Board regular meeting for May of 2022. We're convening at 5:03 p.m. And in person, we have Harry Osborne, Cynthia Andrews, Heidi Blackwell, and Nick Dickman is via Zoom, and David Goldberg, I am here, and Greg Williams is here, as is Denise Butcher. So the two of the board members have excused absences for the day. Okay. First item of business is to review the minutes of the February 9th meeting. Presume you've read them. Anybody have a motion to accept or any changes or?
One correction
Yeah.
that I noticed was the name of the middle school that's mentioned is Tumwater. ATA is the Tumwater.
It was written as
Tumwater.
written as water. We will get that corrected.
Tumwater.
Good catch.
I spent a lot of time.
Yes,
in that
yes.
Process.
Sorry, we missed that.
Yeah, Tumwater Otter.
Yep. We will, okay.
Otters.
The auditors, what auditors? That's a mouthful. Anybody, any other? They can I have a motion then please to accept them.
I'll make a motion to accept what everybody wants.
Second,
I
please.
second.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Any objections then accepted as amended?
Take a quick vote.
Yes, just all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And now review and approve the minutes of the April 13th meeting. Any corrections or concerns? Have a motion, please. Move accepted.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. The library directors report.
Okay. Thank you, David. Really nice to see most everybody here. Nice to see you online too, Nick. I saw you in person recently, so that was good too. So
Yes.
oh no, it is not February 20. So David just pointed out on the agenda, it says I'm sharing my February 2022 report. It is actually the May 2022 report. So
Thank you.
I apologize for that error. Nice to see everybody. This is our first, for people watching at home, this is our first in-person meeting
It's 2 years.
in almost 2 years, which is fantastic. We're doing it now at the library, which we're very excited about. And we believe our Zoom, our hybrid meeting will work well. And we also have Willamette Falls TV streaming and recording this. So we think we've got everything covered. So we're excited about it. So as usual, I will not go through the entire director's report. I know it was long this week, so I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights and then open up the floor to any questions. In the statistics section, I wanted to point out that our library Facebook page now has more than 4,000 followers, which is the high, not that we're competitive or anything, but it's highest of any linked library, and I believe it is the highest of any city department with the exception of the police department. So the police department still is above us, but that's a testament to the excellent work that our PR team, especially Aaron Novinger, does with social media and just helping us engage and get out to the entire community. So that was really great to see. With our conference room being available for use, I've added a new statistic to your statistics page, which just shows the number of bookings, the number of hours that it was booked versus the hours available. And we just do a quick occupancy percentage to just know how much of our available capacity, how much we're using. In this first month, it was about 18%.
Right. And any feedback from the change in policy? Nothing.
I have not had any feedback. I did have one person ask just about the mechanics of not being able to sign up 6 months in advance and having to do it every 30 days, but I walked them through and yeah, they were fine with it. So,
Good.
and we have had a number of people signing up on their own online, which is great. We're always available and here to help people, but if they can do it themselves, if we can empower them to do it themselves, that's a win-win. And speaking of conference room, I just put a snapshot, a little display of the conference room registration software. This is software we originally procured about 2 weeks before COVID, with the idea of using it for our meeting rooms, and then we didn't have meeting rooms for a year and a half. So this is the same software that we used for no contact pickups when we were doing that during the pandemic. We were using it for our programming, and now we're using it for our conference room reservations. So it's a very handy little piece of software for us. You may have seen the Oregon City News recently covered our new library safety specialist position. I wanted to give everybody a quick update with some more late-breaking news that didn't make it into the minutes. So as I mentioned, we had over 40 applications submitted. We had some interviews with a handful of candidates. And we have identified a candidate who we are in the process of making an offer to. Okay, in the process of making an offer to. So hopefully by the end of this week, we will have our new library safety specialist on board. And once we have that person, I will make sure I intend to bring this person to a library board meeting so you can meet them. We're very excited about the experience and the skill set that they will bring to the library, and also the attitude. This is a person who's worked in libraries for 6 years, and so understands kind of the ethos of libraries and what we're all about, and some of the challenges that we face. And I think is really going to help us do a better job of meeting those challenges, and also increase Denise and my capacity to collaborate with other departments, other agencies, other community groups in addressing some of the common challenges we all have these days. So we're very excited about that. I won't go through a lot of the furniture reconfiguration. I will say after the meeting, if anybody would like a tour, I'm happy to show you some of the things that have changed recently if you haven't been in a while. During the month of April, we were very excited to bring back some in-person programming. So we had our first in-person story times in over 2 years, which was fantastic. Those have gone very well. We've had some in-person art labs, both for kids and adults. We have had an in-person hybrid adult book club meeting in here, which worked very, very well. And we have even had some in-person team programming, some video game nights or video game afternoons. We had our 3rd one today. So we just set up these big TVs with a couple Nintendo Switches hooked up to them, and we let teens come in. Part of the nice thing about the reconfiguration we did upstairs is now we don't have the adult computer lab right next to the teen section. And so teens can be teens. You know, they can be a little loud, but
I think they've actually been really good.
they have been really good.
Yeah.
They've been like, they're very funny, you know, watching as they play, they make you laugh. But yeah, it's been great to give them a little more space. Let's see. And then I think the last thing I really want to focus on, not the last thing, the last program I want to focus on, I gave you lots of pictures of our Star Wars, of our May the 4th event. It was so much fun. We've had a couple of hundred people show up outside. It was really, really great to have that many people back at the library. We had a stormtrooper, a TIE fighter pilot who were from a local organization called the 501st Legion, who they do volunteer, they dress up, and they have their costumes have to meet certain standards before they are allowed to join the 501st Legion. So these are movie accurate costumes. So they were here. We had Darth Vader here. We had Wing Commander Greg in his X-Wing costume. And it was observed that I probably had the most fun of anybody who attended the event. We unveiled our Baby Yoda library cards, which were a big hit. People really, really liked those. They're still available. And then probably the most fun part for me was acting mayor, commission president Denise McGriff read a Star Wars Day proclamation on May the 4th, and I got to go there. And so in my guise as Wing Commander Greg, I addressed the Galactic Senate and informed them of the incursion that the Imperials had tried to make at the Jedi Library, but how the community of Jedis had repelled them and maintained peace throughout the galaxy. So that was very fun. And
Fourth was with you.
yes, May the 4th be with you. So we do a Star Wars Day every year on May the 4th. Previous 2 years were all online, and this was kind of a return to being able to do some in-person stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Link updates, 2 things I wanted to share. The first is that credit card payments are now available through the catalog. This has been a very long process to get this done. There were lots of procedural and technical hurdles to overcome in order to make this work with every library in the county. But I'm happy to report that as of April 26th, we are there. The way it works is that the county collects the payments. They bear the compliance responsibility for making sure that the systems meet full banking and credit card industry regulations. Once a quarter, they distribute collected funds broken down by library, and they'll give us a report which details how much was collected. And it's going to be a great service improvement for patrons. Long time coming, but finally there. And I do have to share, I have to know at the county, they have an IT ticketing system where people put in requests for things to fix. The oldest ticket in that system was a request for having an online credit card payment, and they were able to finally close that ticket. So they sent me a copy of it since I had done some work on it. So it was so gratifying to be able to close the oldest outstanding ticket in the county's library help desk system.
Do we accept credit cards and at the library itself?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I've never had to use that, so I wondered.
And that was something that we did 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that was.
Right after we got from the building.
Yeah, that is something that the county is able to offer individual libraries if they want to. Some cities take advantage of it, some don't, but in Oregon City, we definitely do take advantage of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about in the report was our transition, the link-wide transition of ebook platform. So on June 27th, the entire cooperative is going to migrate our ebook and digital audiobook lending platform. We currently we have access to the state through a service called Library to Go, which is on the Overdrive platform. And our local link collection was on a platform called Cloud Library, which was provided by a vendor named Biblioteca. And libraries decided that we wanted to migrate to a single platform to make it a little easier for us to purchase materials, for us to manage the collection, to help patrons only have to learn to use one system. This is also the system that's going to be hosting our new digital magazine collection, which should start on July 1st. So it'll kind of be a one-stop shop for patrons to get their ebooks, their digital audiobooks, their digital magazines, all in one platform. There are the collection that we built in Cloud Library, the way that publishers' restrictions work, we should be able to transfer the vast majority of all the content from Cloud Library into Overdrive. There are a couple of titles which they don't allow us to do that, but it's not a significant amount. So once we get that all migrated over, there should be approximately the same size local collection in Overdrive as there was in the Cloud Library. So if there are any questions about that migration, I'm happy to answer them.
No, I think it's a great idea. I'm pleased that it's happening.
Good. Yeah, it's I'm really excited about the magazines. The magazines they have it through Multnomah County, and I take full advantage of it, and it's great. I mean, the minute I signed up, I saved a couple $100 in subscriptions that I didn't have to have anymore, so I can get it from the library. So great. And that's, unless there are questions on stats or budgets or social media reports, that is all I have.
I have one question about stats.
Yes.
and maybe this is just my imagination, but did we not talk about trying to get a normalized month of looking like 2 years back
Yes,
to do a comparison? Because I'm not seeing that.
we did, and we did that last meeting, so I pulled, it was March. So I
Right.
pulled March of
Okay.
2019 and compared it with March 2022. And I had understood the conversation from the board that doing that like on a quarterly basis
Okay, well,
was
that's
sufficient.
Yeah, that's fine.
If
That was
if
my
you
understanding.
have it monthly, I can certainly.
No, that's
hold
fine.
on. Okay.
Quarterly is fine. I just didn't see it.
Yeah, so March, April, May, June. So I anticipate that for the June stats, we will do another. It'll still be a yeah, let's figure out which June is the most recent normal.
Define normal.
No, it's crazy. So I will find the most recent June that I can, that gives us some comparison.
Any other questions or?
I just had two comments. One was in the partnerships and outreach that the library was present at the Summer of Joy, which was a resource fair that the school district put on for families to find out about different activities happening. And so there was kind of staff that we weren't sure that could show up. So Greg came and manned the booth there along with other park district and just a lot of other organizations. So it's great to have the library there, and I'm glad that you were able to
Thank you for,
make it happen.
thank you for inviting me. I'm going to use your picture in our next center.
Right, okay, yes, I was,
Yeah,
I didn't know if
yeah.
it had got lost in the.
No, no.
And then the second one was the No Place for Hate program, which is just something that I worked on with Barrett last year. It's a landing page that takes families through in schools, teachers through different ways to interact with books, especially books that what they call them, windows and mirror books. So they're things, characters that are the same as you or that are different. And it's just amazing this year, this classes and teachers are using it again because it's just there on the library website and available. And I was just going to turn the books back in that I was using with one of the classes and thought I would just share. One of the schools, Springwater School, they're talking about individuals with different abilities, labels specifically, and that's a kindergarten to 8th grade school. So they pick different books to work on. So one group worked, the kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grades worked on a book about a student that had autism and had a really good friend. And then 3rd through 5th grade was El Depo, which is a graphic novel about a little girl who finds out, that she lost her hearing and just how she kind of navigates school and friends. And then the last one is 6 to 8. And this just was contemporary or past figures and kind of challenges and how they overcame it. So this is student led. This is students identify different areas that they want to talk about with their peers and develop lesson plans, but it's really, really laid out nicely. I just want to make sure that that stays because it's a wonderful resource for teachers and for families to be able to go.
Well, thank you for the feedback. And yes, the intent is, and I want to thank Heidi for her help with, she worked with Barrett to make this happen. And our goal was, we know that, schools were trying to qualify for No Place for Hate. They have activities they have to do. And we thought if we could build something that's just always there, always available, and they kind of off the shelf to say, hey, here's one, this gets us one step in this. We were thrilled to be able to do that. So.
Any other? No? Okay, any public comment?
Yeah.
No public comment? Okay. The next item is sort of a lengthy one, but it's very important. This is the library facility condition assessment. And the reason why, and this is sort of the beginning of a long discussion we're going to have about reserves. Because I mean, it's a very complicated issue with the library reserves and the fund balances that exist. And this puts some context around facility reserves that are that we have that may not be adequate, and sort of what we're going to do with that situation. So Greg, tonight.
Okay. Yep, thank you. So first, I apologize for sending everybody a 50-page report. I hope you didn't delve into every single page of it, but I figured it was, I wanted you to have it to be able to review. The city, and with an eye towards trying to figure out, okay, what are our long-term capital repair and replacement? What's going to need to be fixed, what's going to need to be replaced, and more importantly, an estimate of what those costs were going to be. So they did that for every facility. They hit the library, they included our parking lot there. And the report that I gave you has, kind of all the stuff they looked at, so it was very thorough. I was very pleased with everything they hit. And kind of the two things that I wanted to point out, and especially on the second one, just answer any questions and start engaging in discussion. We're on page 4 of the report, which is page 48 of your packets. One of the key findings was the floor. And we had already known that the floor was, our facilities department had told us the floor is not gonna, usually we try to sand it to keep it in good shape and to extend its life. And they told us last year, that's not gonna work anymore. And this consultant's report validates the fact that that floor is the next kind of big thing that we have to do. We had thought we might do it this biennium, but with post-COVID reconfiguration and some of the expenses that we had, and knowing that with this report, it targeted 2023 for replacement, we're going to defer that a year. So I would anticipate next biennium, we are going to give you a budget for having the floors replaced. We'll do both the floor in Carnegie, and it's also the floor in the newer part of the building, which doesn't make me very happy.
Well, and we actually found out during the building project when they bumped the floors in there, the contractors told us it was at its end of life. Wish we would have just replaced it then.
Yeah, that would have been nice. So their estimate in this report, which was done in last summer, $90,000. I'm not going to look into my crystal ball and predict what contracting and equipment and labor material supplies are going to cost next year. So I think 90 grand would probably be a floor. It might be a little more, but that's something that we'll have to do. And I'm sure that's going to cause some service disruptions. We'll have to, close the Carnegie while they're doing that. We'll figure it out. But I just wanted to let everybody know that was kind of the only thing that the vendor identified as here's a short to near term or near to short term thing that you really need to look at.
And will that come out of one of the fund balances, or will that be an operating?
No, that I would anticipate. So my plan would be, we would budget that out of the community facilities fund. So that's the one that we've got about 500 grand in there right now. And the purpose of that fund is to put money aside for capital repair and replacement. So we'll take it out of there, during budget time, which you'll all be, very involved in as we get there. We will start, we work with our facilities department to kind of think about other things that we may want or need to do. I think it's only the floor, but there may be some other capital things that you're interested in doing, and that would form our budget request for pulling money out of that capital reserve community facilities fund and using that money for that purpose. So, any questions about the floor, the short term?
Did I understand correctly? You said, I understand the Carnegie, but did you say that there was a new floor that needed to be replaced?
Yes, the wood floor in the new section of the lobby, which was done in 2016, it's already, the next time you're in, stop by and I'll show you, but it's separating, it's starting to be a trip hazard.
Wow.
And we've gone through several times, and our facilities person has, and caulked in between them and tightened it up, hoping that it would hold, and it's not. They just keep separating.
Yeah.
Well,
So
okay.
and as part of the project, we will definitely, my bias is always, I want it to last as long as possible. Even if it doesn't look the absolute prettiest, I put a premium on durability. And so we will work with any contractor we get. What's the best balance we can find between something that respects the character of the building and is kind of the wood ambiance that people have grown accustomed to here, but is something that's going to last us as long as peacefully possible.
What do you think is the life of the floor?
I want to say, well, let's see. I want to say between 10 and 15 years is what I have in mind. But let me see what it should be in the report. It is R. C23. Interior, rooms there, flooring, wood strip. Remaining useful life is 2, but they don't tell what the actual useful life is. I want to say it's
10 years.
10 to, yeah, somewhere. I don't think you get much more than that. And depending on the material used also. Okay, so that was the floor. So the other thing, and this is more what I wanted to just, start putting in people's minds. I joke with Denise of the 3 or 4 things that keep me up at night, this is one of them. Just because it's trying to figure out what we're going to do. So on page 8 of the consultant's report, which is page 52 of your packet, there is a projection. So they went through the library, they looked at every capital asset that we had, they figured out, okay, how long is it going to last? How much is it going to cost to replace it? And they put it into this nice chart broken up between periods of time. So short term, near term, and medium term and long term. And they went in, and the numbers that you see on this page, these are inflation adjusted numbers. So it's trying to capture what the cost is actually going to be in the years that you incur the expenses. They assumed 3% inflation, which we know at least right now is not terribly realistic. So again, I always say my crystal ball works just as well as anybody else's, which is not at all. But I don't think our cost would be any lower than this. So as you can see, when we start getting out to 6 to 20 years from now, there are, over $3 million worth of, and this is not new construction. This is just repairing and replacing this building and the fixtures and the capital assets that we already have. So, it's a good, so that's the cost. So on the revenue side, so what we started to do with our budget a few years ago was we do put money in every year to our community facilities fund. Right now, it's only $20,000, which is not going to be sufficient to fund these. If you divide this out, it's like 200 grand a year. So we know 20,000 a year is not sufficient to meet what our capital needs are going to be going forward. In our facilities reserve fund, there's currently about 500,000, which gets to the short and the near term. So I'm okay with that. It's those medium and long term ones. It's where does the funding come from to make sure that we have that money available when we need it. And right now, that 20 grand a year that we put aside, that comes out of basically, most of our money comes from the library district distribution, which I'm trying to be diplomatic. Yes, that when it was presented to voters in 2008, the way it was presented to voters was this was intended to fund operations, and it was not really intended to serve as also funds for capital repair and replacement. The thought was, we'll figure something else out later. How are we going to do that? Or cities might be able to fund that. But we also know that every city is in the same position we are. There's costs always rise faster than revenues. So I wanted to share a little bit of what keeps me up at night.
So how much money is going into the reserve fund every year right now? I know it's reduced.
Yeah, well, right now I'll know a little better at the end of the biennium. Budget wise, we do not have, going to the capital reserve fund is 20 grand a year.
Right, capital.
Yes, and now the other source of funds that we do have is we do have our library fund balance. So that is currently up around, it's nearly 4 million, which is, exceeds the amount that's here. Of that 4 million, our finance department wants us to keep, and I agree with, we need to keep a reserve. We need to keep money in there just in case there's some emergency or something terrible happens. We want to make sure we have funds in reserve. And
what are they recommending? What?
The current, so what we did for last budget, and this is always something that we can, it's not set in stone, but we wanted to start with something. So what our finance department said was 7 months worth of operating expenses. Because of the way the taxes are distributed, we don't get our money, our first big chunk of money until January, typically in every year. So they wanted to make sure that we have enough cash in the library fund to be able to fund operations until we got that distribution. They add on to that 1 year's worth of debt service on the building, just to make sure that we can always, with a straight face say that we've got enough in to pay our debt service. That's another 400,000. And then a 10% contingency on top of that. And for this last biennium, it came out to about 1.9 million. Is approximately our target reserve for the library fund. So we want to keep 1.9 million available, in there. We've currently got about 3.8 million. So there's more in there than we need. That's another discussion. I shouldn't say need. There's more in there. There's an excess above that target reserve in there. And so there will be discussion of what's the best use of that money. One of the possibilities is to help with this capital need. The concern and the trade-off in that is, again, those dollars were meant for operational purposes. And when you take, we all live on budgets. So when you take money away from operations, that restricts our ability to do things that we all know we want to do, like outreach, to the unincorporated area, doing more, building our collections and adding more electronic resources. So that's the conundrum. And we're not the only ones. We're not the only library in this boat. This is a conversation that basically every library in Clackamas County has had. Is how do we, we all know we're going to have capital needs going forward. What's the best way to address that? So that's my
Another question, Greg. How much is the fund balance increasing every year, and do we budget for that increase, or are you spending all the money that's coming in other than what's going into the capital reserve?
So my goal with this year's budget, so we looked back at what our previous experience had been, the way we budgeted and what we were ending up with and what we were putting into fund balance every year. And it averaged, it was higher than I would like. And that's why that fund balance grew. It was a couple $100 every year that we weren't spending on operations that was going into fund balance, which to a point is good, but then it's, taxpayers voted to provide this money so that we could provide services. So for this biennium's budget, we tried to do, we adjusted the way we budget. So I am hopeful that this year at this biennium, at the end of this biennium, we are going to be a lot closer we're not going to have we're not going to be adding a lot to fund balance out of unspent budgeted revenues. I think I would have to go pull up the budget, but I think pretty close. It's pretty close. So I will say the wrinkle in all of that is we might be we still might have some money going in because the job market, COVID has made staffing just very weird. So we've had a couple of positions that have been vacant a little longer than we anticipated. So that's good in that it provides us some vacancy savings, but it also might mean that we have some funds left over, unspent funds left over at the end of my end. But
Greg had explained to me in a private meeting that we had that this happens because the amount of money that the county collects on property taxes exceeds what's been budgeted. So, and that was done sort of intentionally, that there'd be a gap. That gap was very large. And Greg is now trying to shrink it, saying, let's get better at making that of that assessment of the assessment. Frankly.
Yeah. And we are pleased with our revenue budgeting this time around. We'll get our final distribution for this year in about a month, and we are right on target where we expect to be. Based on the previous year's results, I expect we'll get somewhere between 170 and 190,000 as our second distribution, and we need to get 160 to make budget. So we're close on that. And then our second year budget, in our city budget, we just got the county's estimate, which is usually very close, and we were like $500 off. between their estimate and our estimate, which was nice because our city estimate used to be much more conservative than the county estimate, which is another reason why we had, we had money left over every year. So I think we're doing a better job of budgeting and projecting revenues and expending funds responsibly against those anticipated revenues to provide service.
I mean, at some point, it seems to me the whole library community needs to start talking about bond measure. And that can cover some, I mean, these kinds of things. And I don't know, Nick, if you've been involved in those conversations at all. You've certainly been hearing some of that, I'm sure. What is the current thinking about when another library bond might be closed?
There's no definitive time frame. So, I mean, we haven't really even gotten together as the large task force, and that most of the discussions are like, even with the next LDAC meeting is really, I'd say, in limbo in terms of when it's going to be scheduled. Probably later in the summer or early fall at this point. But I think there's we may have to adjust what we were trying to do with the large task force and do some other, and maybe there'll be a need to do some smaller analysis around the funding and that type of thing is what I'm thinking right now. But Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it was really unfortunate that COVID had when it did for a variety of reasons, but the task force was one of those. In a non-COVID world, we would have been done with the task force process by now, and we would have had some great consultant information and information from libraries that really projected out what capital needs are going to be, what operating needs are going to be, what services we want to provide, as a county, and have been able to make a good argument. Here's the funding level that's going to be needed. Is now the time to go out and ask voters for it. So we're 2 years behind on all that work. The county commissioners have said they're still behind that work, but they've got a lot on their plate at the moment. So there has not been a lot of urgency about moving forward with it. I think Nick is 100% correct. When we get back to that process, I think it may look a little different than we originally anticipated. If I ran everything the way I would do it, is knowing how stretched thin everybody is and is going to be for the next year or two, I would say, find money to hire an outside consultant to just come in and do a financial assessment of the viability of the district at the current rate. There are enough library consultants out there who kind of understand what libraries are about and what they're trying to do generally, to move forward. And you can probably get pretty good recommendation from that consultant to be able to say, hey, if you needed a district rate that covered libraries' operational needs, covered libraries' future capital needs, maybe also covered the central office, which provides services to all the libraries, kind of here's the rate you'd be looking at. I think with that, then it would start to be a question of, all right, we need to start making the case in our communities with our elected officials that, in order to make sure that libraries are sustainable going forward, this is what we need to do.
And it needs to be some cleanup of the language that was voted on in 2008.
Yeah. Yes.
That would make it, because we are constantly at odds with each other in a sense because of interpretation. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So I hope that process in some way is going to get started again. I think that those are conversations that the library directors we have on a monthly basis, and as I know more, I'll let you know. But my personal thought is that yes, at some point you really do need to start looking at. We need to go out and ask voters for, if you value library service. This has worked as well as it could since 2008. Now here's kind of where we need to go.
But I think your idea about hiring a consultant to do it is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
We've never really talked about that at LDAC or anything like that.
No. So David just asked how we could push that forward. Well, one thing would be Nick is our LDAC member, so at any future LDAC meeting, if that was the consensus of the board, I'm sure Nick would be very happy to report that to the
Yeah.
group. I will continue to advocate for it in my role.
It would be helpful if you could bring back to us, maybe at the next meeting, some sense of the other library directors. And then perhaps we could make a motion that get it on the record that we really recommend moving forward in a more aggressive way, and that perhaps the best way to do that would be to bring somebody from the outside in order to project that.
The only issue with bringing somebody in that would have to come from the general fund of the county, and I don't know how much they would be willing to do it.
That is a very good question. I would like to hope that if we can say something along the lines of, we were going to do this 2-year task force process, which if you consider all the staff time that would have been involved in that, it would have cost you X. It's only going to cost you this lower amount to get a consultant in. So maybe even if the county can't fund it fully, maybe cities would be able to.
That's a thought. That's a good thought.
But that's that. And you know, those are the kind of things that we discuss with our directors, you know, amongst ourselves, how to some of those ideas and how that could work. And
Any questions, or this gets into the really complicated legal language of some of these things, and Nick has been brave to deal with some of the screaming and yelling over what certain funds and various balances can be used for. And it becomes kind of arcane, but it does need to be cleaned up. And I do think, I certainly would like to see us move forward on getting our.
I mean, there are people that have been discussing the same thing for the last 14 years.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Heck, it took us 20 just to get credit cards, so probably something like, yeah.
Don't give up.
Yeah. It's, yeah. No, not yet.
All right, well, let's move on then. Wanted to give you an update on the tactical plan committee. Cynthia and Nick and I met with Denise and Greg, and we sort of laid out a template for how we want to see the tactical plan development happen. And we ought to share that actually. And we haven't done that yet, but
No.
let's do that.
I will, yes, my plan is, we'll share that at next meeting. I'm hoping to have another meeting of our tactical plan committee before then, so we can, I got some great feedback from the committee and I can incorporate that into the latest version. I have not had bandwidth to do that the last couple of weeks.
And the staff, that's for the staff, right? And like that, and so they developed it or they put the input on.
Yes.
developing the tactical plan,
Yep.
right?
We've sort of laid out the template for it. The staff needs to come back and say, this is within this template, that this is how we want to proceed with it.
They're the ones who are gonna be doing the work. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we're not planning for them.
No,
They're-
No.
Correct.
Well, we wanted to tease that out because the older plan was so big and it had its utility at the time, but it had mixed a lot of operational pieces, long range, strategic pieces, and I think it made it harder for the staff in some ways to know which of those things they should be really focusing on and how do we know that we've done. And so when we met about the strategic plan itself, then we decided to separate those things. And I think it'll really be a much more useful set of documents ultimately to the library itself.
Right.
By doing that, and it was really important to the little subcommittee that worked on it that the tactical plan, the operational plan live with the staff.
And that would be accounted for.
Well said. Well said.
Good. Okay, other communications, foundation, Cynthia?
I missed the last meeting due to an emergency dental thing
Oh, yeah.
and stoned out. No one else-
That would have been funny.
That's what they do, right?
Yeah.
Yes, no, we did a good job. Oh, you're gonna have to be upright? I don't think so. So, I'm sure Greg was there, but we
Yeah.
do have a little, I can give a little update on the Dolly Parton. As you know, we've sunsetted the Dolly Parton project to make, room for the 1,000 books before kindergarten and to have a more economical and library-based, program for those kids. And so we're making progress in sunsetting kids as they graduate out at age 5. The total children we've served were 900, which was really a lot, actually. And currently we have 500 kids that are active. And, we can see as they sunset out our Dolly Parton costs that are related to the program, sunsetting as well. And so we will have some challenges in how will we fund those last group of kids as they leave the program, but we'll talk about that. But I don't know what else happened.
The things I'll update you on from the foundation. So, and this is great. In future months, I will have actual stats that Barrett can share. I just know off the top of my head, we shared it with the foundation at the last meeting. I think we've been doing 1,000 books for kindergarten just for a couple of months. I think we currently have 130 families signed up, and they have already read over 10,000 books, which is awesome. So we are very pleased with all the reading that's going on, and anecdotally, people will love the tote bags and just having that opportunity to engage with the families and.
So this is not 10 kids reading 1,000 books.
No, no. But
That would be remarkable. That'd be really remarkable.
How many books did you say, Nick?
It's over 10,000 at this point.
When I was thinking about this, is there any way that we can easily or reasonably easily know if the kids that left or graduated from, the Dolly Parton project are being absorbed into the 1,000 Books project? Because I'm wondering, do we want, is there additional marketing we should do to the current audience of Dolly Parton participants to encourage them to get into the 1,000 Books program?
That is a great question. I think that's something I can talk to Krista about that. I think logistically, the difficulty would be the data from Dolly Parton. Like, I don't know what the privacy restrictions that Dolly, that program operates under. So I don't know if we asked, hey, can we get all this information about the participants?
I don't know the answer to that either, but
So,
looking at the numbers and your numbers, I'm thinking we could be a good, the foundation could be a good partner in helping kids get into 1,000 Books if we would be allowed to, if we knew, who those kids were and that they were, transitioning, how could we be a better partner there? But it's too cumbersome.
No, I think it's well worth investigating.
I think it's just a question that I'd like to know if there's a reasonable answer to.
Is there outreach to all the preschools?
I know we do outreach. We do outreach to many schools. I don't know. I can have Barrett come and do a report on outreach. I know we've just started having school visits again here in the building. So we finally able to do so. I know as we reported, Barrett has great relationships with the school district and a lot of the classrooms and principals. So Denise, do you know off the top of your head? No.
I don't.
Yeah. So one of the things.
Books before 5, right? So
Yes.
that's
Preschool.
Yeah.
like preschool and then,
Yeah.
those Head Start. And
Oh,
those
yeah,
programs.
and I know she worked, I know she worked very closely with Head Start. We've delivered, we've delivered books to Head Start to get out there. I know I think she, I'm 99% sure she just did, she dropped off a batch of about 50 or 60 books to, I believe it was Head Start, and she included 1,000 books. The other thing on foundation related, I just wanted to let everybody know, the thing we're working on with them right now is they are going to apply for a community enhancement grant through the city. They're going to be the applying organization. They are requesting $7,500 or $7,500 less their 10%. So $7,500 minus $750. Our proposal is to put on a series of 3 dance instructional events, which should be totally fun. Barrett this is all, Barrett's the impetus behind this, so kudos to her. Dance has been shown to strengthen community bonds, help people heal from trauma, which over the past 2 years, we've all experienced some trauma and been isolated from one another. So the proposal is we're partnering with our Parks Department and with the school district to do 3 dance events. There'll be Bollywood dance. So you'll learn how to do some Bollywood dance, and then have like an hour of just dancing fun. One would be here, either here or over at the Pioneer Center. One would be at a park, at a city park, and then one will be at Beaver Creek School, which is in the unincorporated area. And they'll be at different times of the day and different days of the week to hopefully get as many people participating as possible. If our vision is that this becomes something that we can do on an annual basis, and do different cultures every year. So one this year will be Bollywood, and next year, Barrett has love. I can't remember the exact name. There's Ukrainian folk dance, which she says is very easy to learn and is totally fun to do. So we just think that'll be fun. So we're going to apply for the grant. Oz has been helpful, has been helping us review the grant application, give us feedback. So thank you very much for Oz for that. And that's what we're working with the foundation on right now.
The Friends,
That's the Friends.
that is the Friends.
The Friends?
It was the Friends that was doing the community improvement.
No,
grant.
it's the foundation.
Huh.
The Friends are doing the mural.
Well, yeah, but never mind.
Yeah.
I think the big thing to come out of the Friends meeting was that they've reached the goal for the mural funding, and that's going to be going in. And you haven't gone on the website and looked at it. I'm not a proponent of murals. Whales going up buildings and things just don't appeal to me. But this one is really pretty nifty, and I think it will be a real enhancement up here on the street.
Yeah, it's and they're making good progress on it. We took a look at it yesterday, I think. It's looking fun. And the artist, he's a frequent library user, and his daughter is here all the time. So it's nice to have that connection.
In fact, she's the little girl that's in the painting. Oh, yeah, it's very cute.
Yes.
Okay, any LDAC updates? I think we heard.
I think you got the update.
Yeah. Or lack thereof.
Probably more than you ever wanted, actually.
Okay, any other communications issues?
I just had a comment. I don't exactly know what category this goes in, but last week, another organization that I belong to participated in Beaver Creek Schools Partners in Learning event. And it was a big school event, attracted just tons of kids and parents. Part of it was like to introduce the incoming kindergartners to their classrooms and their teachers. And part of it was kind of like a celebration of the end of the year with existing kids and their teachers and that sort of thing. And the Boy Scouts were there and the Girl Scouts and some other community things. And I thought, well, that would have been a great event for the library, because it's definitely a partner in learning. And I don't know, it didn't occur to me to ask why the library wasn't there. I mean, I know it's a staffing issue, but there were so many parents and kids there. It just would have been a good event.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe, we would like to represent the library, especially if we're talking about increasing services to the outside of the city limits community. I think those kinds of events are an opportunity. I'm just bringing it up, and I don't know what the next steps would be, but perhaps, contact in the school and say, gosh, I heard about this great, it was a really nice event. A lot of parents and kids ran from 5 to approximately 6:30 or so. And I think that kind of outreach is going to be important if we're really trying to bring in the outlying communities that live in Beaver Creek, but just saying, oh, we'd like to be a part of that next time. If staff is.
I have a future agenda item, if we can talk future agenda items, and that is, I am really curious if there's a way that we can reduce the amount of time that's required and just the minutes that are being produced. They're lovely minutes. They're very detailed. They're the most detailed minutes that I've ever seen in my, and it's like, and it's really good, but we know that these are all being recorded. So they're very accessible from that standpoint. And I'm just wondering if we could have a discussion about that at a future meeting. Maybe Greg can do a little bit of research on what's really required by the city, that type of thing. I'm not trying to downplay that. I mean, I think they're excellent minutes, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how often they're really referred to. We do have the recording, and if we just had a good summary of what was included in that particular meeting. We also have Greg's report, which really covers a lot of like his report and a lot of discussion around that. So I think it's be really good to look at that and see if we can reduce the amount of effort that's really required for us to meet our requirement to have minutes.
Any other future agenda item ideas? Greg, did you have anything you wanted to?
Yeah, I did want to just respond to the, yes, we'll reach out to the Greek schools. I agree, that would have been a great thing. I'm not even sure if we knew that it was happening. I don't think.
But the school was planning it versus the district one.
The
Yeah.
school was planning it, and this is the first time they've done a partners piece, and it was a little rocky,
Yeah.
knowing what exactly we were supposed to do when we got there. But it turns out that each partner had a table. It was outside in the covered area. Each partner had a table to just kind of highlight how they partner with the school, and I just thought it would have been a great.
It would have been, and so I'll let you know. Just all.
Contacts there if you want me to help with introductions.
Oh yeah, well, I was going to say anybody who comes across an opportunity like that, with your involvement in the committee, please feel free to let us know. Heidi does a great job of letting us know, hey, here's something that you might want to take advantage of. So yeah,
I know Redland is doing one.
always feel free to let us know. And in general, we try. With a week's notice, it's really hard for us to do something.
Yeah.
So that's about the only time when we say this isn't really going to work for us. So, but if we have 2 or 3 weeks to prepare for, to do the scheduling and make sure that we can cover it, then yes, we're always excited to do it. So, but on that one,
I just want to comment real quick. The hybrid meeting is excellent. I heard everyone perfectly. I felt like I was there with y'all.
Yay, good.
Yeah. Any other
Just wanted to
issues?
thank you for that.
Was there a conversation about the teen group that as an official?
Yes, yep,
Was that last time?
yep, that is on
I
there.
just,
Yeah.
Yep, it's
Make it not a committee, make it a committee of the board or something.
So on the future agenda items. Yep, I listed that. That's the last one. And the reason we haven't done it yet is just to give everybody an update is we have asked the teen advisory group. So our bylaws now say that the group should have a charter or a purpose. And so we've asked our teens to help us. We had something, and I asked Sabrina and Barrett, can you go back to the teens themselves and just kind of ask them, does this make sense? Is this what you see yourselves doing? And so they came back with one iteration, and they came back with, they just had a meeting on last Saturday when I was at the thing, and so they have another version of that. So once we get that kind of where it is, I anticipate we will come back to this group for the formal designation of TAG as a library board site. We wanted to make sure that they were invested and they were,
And looking at this list today, I'm wondering if it would be a good use of our time to have a work session and sort of cluster some of these things together. If we're ready, like the policies, for example, and maybe we can have a kind of an extended work session with some food and, that sort of thing, so that some of these don't clutter up the agendas. And they're important, I don't mean that, but we're moving into a stage, it feels like, that we're having a need for some more substantive discussions about things, and the operational piece, not the tactical piece, but some of these other things, the policies and whatnot, they take up agenda time. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we could push them together to kind of deal with a bunch of them all at once and get them off of our radar, on your radar, and maybe make our meeting time, you know, open, a little more open to some more substantive, long range kinds of things, as well as the ordinary things we look for to do. So,
Certainly open to that.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not saying, I'm not having a data thing, but
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about it as a
Yeah.
planning device, so.
Yep, I think that's good feedback to have. I think what I'll do is I want to talk to our city recorder. So our bylaws say that we have to meet, the way the bylaws are written, we have to have 9 regular meetings per year. So I'm going to make an assumption that when we talk about having work sessions, that you don't necessarily want that to be 9 regular, in addition to 9 regular meetings, because I know everybody, I want to respect everybody's time. So I want to ask him if we had a work session, would that count towards that 9
Right.
regular meeting
Right,
threshold? Do we need to make a bylaws change to better reflect the fact that we're having different kinds of meetings and
a focus session.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to necessarily just the ordinary.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
No, I think it's
I-
good. We can get some of these things off the.
Mhm.
The to-do list getting longer.
Well,
yeah,
You know, when I looked at this, I thought, wow, you know, some of these we've been kicking around for a while, they just don't have time
Right.
to really deal with it, and some of it doesn't take that much to deal with either. I mean, from a board perspective, I
Yes.
know from a staff perspective, that's a totally different thing, because you have to come up with the policy and revise it and all this kind of thing, but it just seems like we might lessen the burden over time if we.
Just did it. Yeah, I agree.
yeah, no, I that would work well for us. Because it's a little easier to prepare for a work session. See, we don't have to do the statistics, we don't have to do the minutes, we don't have to do, the ancillary stuff, and I could just focus on, here's kind of some things that we want to try to tackle. So
Well, the other thing too, for example, if we look at all these policies that, or whatever, what are the themes and trends that we're seeing there? And does that inform some of our future thinking and acting? I think that's sometimes when you switch things together, you can kind of say, wow, this file is pretty big, and, is there a way we can deal with that and offset this in the future? I just sometimes think you can get a better sense of what's happening.
great feedback. So I heard, until we get that for a future agenda, I've heard recognition of tag, that was already on my list. Is there anything else on here that people feel strongly that should be, prioritized sooner rather than later?
Well, the outreach is still, I think, very important to
Yes,
some of us for sure.
and actually,
Getting information.
I think we should consider setting up a separate committee for that.
Certainly open to that.
Yeah, that would be, I can give a quick update on,
I had asked Greg to see, and he thought there was information out there of neighborhood associations and community associations that were in the district outside of the city that we could start. liaising.
if we wanted to have a committee meeting in there, that might be good. I just found out, and I'm trying to be respectful of time. Is there anybody who can't stay for another 5 minutes? Does that work for everybody? Okay. We've talked about this before. The city every 2 years does a community satisfaction survey that they send out to all city, a statistically valid sampling of all city residents. And one of our goals and my goal has been to extend the library portion of that survey out to our entire service area, to the unincorporated folks. So we are, at this point, we are 99.9% sure we can do that. We're having some more conversations with the vendor who's going to help us do that. But I've talked with our communications department, they're all on board. It would also be an opportunity when we send those questions out to the unincorporated area. We want to maintain similarity with the city side of the survey so that we have apples to apples comparison of the data. But there could also be an opportunity to add some additional questions for the unincorporated folks that focus more on, what are the services that you feel, you really need as being farther away. So if we wanted to have like a subcommittee meeting, just to kind of brainstorm some of those questions,
Let's do that.
that would be useful for me.
Yeah, well, for me too. Yeah, I think I'm certainly interested.
Okay, is there,
I know, Nick, you're interested as well.
Plan interested then?
and I think Cynthia, you're also you're unincorporated.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Okay, so I mean, would
Yes.
That would
this,
be-
I don't, so my efficiency way of thinking is, all right, we've got 3 unincorporated or folks with unincorporated interest already on our tactical plan subcommittee, so I could have back to back, you know, we could do one meeting,
Fine.
tactical plan, then
Yeah.
have the unincorporated. Is there anybody else who would want to be involved in that?
I would.
You would, okay,
Outreach, but not necessarily to unincorporated. I have other groups or organizations or
Yeah.
that I would like to ensure that we're meeting things out.
My attitude as well.
is more outreach rather than just the unincorporated folks, so, okay. So maybe we'll have maybe we can. My request would be we start with the unincorporated folks, because that's the opportunity that we have right now is to develop some survey questions, and the time frame for that is we have to get those in by, I don't want to say June or July is when they need those. final questions. So, yeah, so, okay. Any? So, okay, I've got a couple. The policies I'm going to try to bring as I can, because for us, it's important to have up-to-date policies that help us do what we need to do. So it also does take the longest time to put those together. Was there anything else that people felt strongly about? Either on this list or not on this list? Okay.
All right.
So, okay, so I think we got for next, and I'll work on figuring out how we can, structure some work sessions without creating too much of a time burden on everybody.
Yeah.
And I need to say, I'm so grateful for everybody's willingness to be at meetings and to participate and to help us with this. It is very nice to have such a supportive, engaged board. That is not always the case where city departments have that, so I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
All right, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 6:10 PM. Thank you, everybody. See you next month.
Right?
Been great. See you soon.
Bye, Nick.
Bye, Nick. Take care.